Migrant crisis in the country is still causing stress right here in the Bay State. And now the war in Israel may bring more families searching for places to live. This as the U.S. is starting to evacuate flights for Americans living in Israel. How could this add to the current emergency shelter situation in our state?
Western Mass News reporter Daniel Santiago joining us live in studio after getting those answers. Daniel.
Chris, Abby, there are nearly 7,000 families currently in the Massachusetts shelter system, and that number continues to grow.
Massachusetts has been under a state of emergency due to the growing migrant crisis since August, and more families are still coming into the Bay State seeking asylum. We have learned in the last 24 hours, 33 families were placed in the Massachusetts emergency shelter system, and there are currently 6,892 families sheltering in the Commonwealth, according to state data. Adults and children living in shelters, hotels, and motels. Governor Maura Healey's office sharing with Western Mass News, they estimate that half of those families are migrants arriving in the United States for the first time. The rest represent longtime Massachusetts residents who may be experiencing homelessness or find themselves in need of help. The Healey administration recently announced that 250 members of the state's National Guard have been activated to help with the migrants' families living in state shelters. The governor is still considering locations across the entire state for emergency shelters, including one right here in Western Mass, a dorm on the Westfield State University campus. But it is an option that the university is opposing. In a statement, Westfield State University tells Western Mass News in part, in cooperation with officials from the city of Westfield and other elected officials, Westfield State University has expressed our serious concerns about the assignment of displaced persons to our campus. And an added layer to this migrant crisis. Starting Friday, more families will be arriving in the U.S. seeking shelter or even new homes. This time, Americans living in Israel, wanting to leave and come to the United States away from danger. The U.S. government will be operating evacuation flights out of Israel as the war rages on.
Also this week, a team from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security visited Massachusetts assessing the migrant situation here. In the meantime, different organizations are already starting to prepare for more arrivals, whether Americans from Israel or migrant families coming for the first time. Reporting live in studio, Daniel Santiago, Western Mass News.